This look was brought to you by the flu season. Thanks, flu. Hey, this is Brookes with Character Design Forge. Now, during the 5 days that I've had the flu, I did something that I haven't in a very long time, which is nothing. Now, between the bouts of misery and agony and shivering and weird naps, I did nothing. No drawing, no client work, no making videos, no playing video games. I couldn't even do that. My eyes would hurt. That's the fun part of being sick. When I could, though, we watched movies with heroes and villains. Now, villains get a lot of hate, but they also get a lot of love. Why is that? Why do villains sometimes seem more interesting? And what can we do to make our heroes just as interesting? Now, when it comes to the characters that we like, there's definitely an element of personal taste involved. For instance, some kids just choose and tend to like the Decepticons more than the Autobots. And I tend to think that there's a part of us that's more intrigued and attached to characters that we can personally identify with more so than others, and maybe even removed from the quality of that character or its storytelling. Now, personally, I'm all about aligning with those ultra good characters, your Yodas, your Judy Hopps, your Mr. Rogers, and so forth. But in many instances, villains tend to seem more interesting. In fact, they could completely steal the show, while the hero might come off as boring. Now, one small reason for this might be because the villain is the proactive element of the story, while the hero is simply reactive. The villain has put all this time and effort into plotting out how to take over the world, and the hero simply reacts by stopping them. And if this is all the hero exists for, they're kind of on the back foot, and the story might suffer as a whole. But there's an even bigger reason that villains can be more interesting. And to bring us up to speed, I'm going to reference my How to Design Villain Characters video and the 2 criteria that define what a villain is. The first is that this villain character has opposing views to your protagonist character in some way. Now, this presents a problem though, because how do you show that your protagonist character, the good guy, is right or justified in his actions? This is where the second criteria comes in handy. So if you would like your audience to easily understand that a character is bad or your villain, then you simply need to show that they value themselves or their own life over other people's lives or well-being. Thank you, 2016 Brookes. So young, so healthy. Now, heroes are predominantly selfless, while villains are predominantly selfish. But how do we make this interesting? Well, the secret ingredient is conflict. We are intrigued by conflict. Conflict is drama. Without conflict, we don't have stories. At a story's root, you may have a conflict between the selfish and the selfless. But couldn't you argue that characters who embody these ideas wholly, a 100% selfless and a 100% selfish character, would be completely boring? For example, not all villains are interesting. Marvel's had a bit of a villain issue in the past, and one that comes to mind is Thor the Dark World's Malachor, who exists almost more as an environmental hazard than as a person. He's given no personality, no reason for us to care about him, and most importantly, no conflict. He just exists to destroy everybody or something and be the dominant whatever. I don't know. He's purely 100% selfish, valuing himself and his people over others. But then you look at 2 extremely empathetic villains, figureheads for this interesting villain idea in Loki and Kylo Ren. There's a direct correlation between our interest in these characters and how conflicted they are. Kylo Ren wants to follow in the footsteps of Darth Vader to spite where he comes from, but he actually struggles with a pull to the light side of the Force. At one point in my 26-minute long video about making characters people care about, I talked about how the light side of the Force and the dark side of the Force are selflessness and selfishness embodied respectively. This conflict in Kylo Ren is extremely compelling because he's not a 100% evil character. We have hope that possibly he could be redeemed. We're not really sure what's going to happen next with him. Now, for a character to be 100% anything means that they're perfect in that aspect, and perfection isn't human. Instead, flaws are human. And as backwards as it sounds, a villain who struggles with a pull to the light or an inclination towards selflessness is a flawed villain. And flaws make us care about a character. This villain is one that we can care about. Now, how do we transfer this over to our hero characters? How do we make them interesting and add conflict without just making them the bad boy or an anti-hero or something like that? Well, really, it involves making it difficult for them to be selfless. Make it difficult for your hero to be good. Now, an age-old storytelling technique is to ask yourself, what would be the worst thing to happen to this character right now? As in, what test or trial would affect this character the most? This is what makes Spider-Man such an interesting hero, and honestly one of the best. He's constantly in these situations where he has to give up one thing for another. He can't be on a date and stop a bank robbery. He can't go to school and fight a supervillain. Most of the time this comes down to a decision that's better for Peter, one that you could consider to be selfish, or one that's better for the greater good, or selfless. Now, the way that this storytelling goes, if Peter chooses the selfless thing, it's really not easy. Or if he goes for the selfish thing, it could come back to bite him later. What's really more interesting, a character who is 100% good, or a character who took 5 years to become good, or who says it's a struggle to be good every day? It's more interesting when goodness and selflessness win out in the end, instead of our character just existing at a level 100 good from start to finish. Triumph is one of the greatest feelings that a story can elicit. In order to tell a good story, you need conflict not just between characters, but within them as well. Now, while I've been battling my sick self to make this video, the inner conflict of my biology, if you will, I need to tell you how immensely grateful I am for 50,000 subscribers. Your guys' support is incredible. Now, as a thank you, this is something I've hinted at recently, but let's make it official. 2 videos a week from here on out. 1 character design forge video a week, like this one, that's meant to educate and help you with your design, character design, storytelling, and art, and 1 forge a character video a week, like I've made it in the last few weeks, where I guide you through the process of creating a character or illustrating a character. Those have been really fun to make, and as much as they're still meant to help and educate you, hopefully there's something you can learn from watching that process, they're also meant to be something for people who aren't as interested in doing this work themselves, but like to see the journey or watching the process of art getting made. And if you know anyone like that who likes to watch art getting made or illustration or drawing happening, I'd love it if you shared it with them. That would be a huge help to me. 2 videos a week, by the way, is excluding new episodes of Character Select, which would be a 3rd video a week. And we're coming up on the Season 1 finale of that show, and we have a lot of surprises in store for you guys in Season 2 that I think you'll really like, especially for people who couldn't get into the show so far. Now, I'm only able to move forward with this plan because of your support, and especially the support of folks over on Patreon. If you haven't seen them already, there are a ton of rewards that you get in return for supporting me there, including a personalized video critiquing your art and helping you level up your art game. Thank you sincerely for your support so far, and I can't wait to see where we can take things next. Thank you for watching, and have fun creating.